Hi, welcome to Creating LinkIT Assessments with Amy Hover. I'll be your facilitator today for today's workshop. Today's goal is you are going to take an assessment as a student. We are going to collaborate ideas on how to use this assessment tool in our classroom, and then eventually you'll be leaving this workshop with your own assessment that you can use in your classroom. So your district's goal is to create authentic assessments and use that data-driven instruction for your students. As we create our own assessments, we'll be focusing on the tools that LinkIT has to create what looks like a traditional assessment. So you can take that knowledge and start thinking about your curriculum and how to adapt it in order to make authentic assessments using the LinkIT program. So LinkIT is a platform that is an assessment management, data analytics, and intervention support solution. It uses a diverse team of K through 12 educators, technologists, and data experts to help student performance and implementation in the classroom. It helps you manage your students' growth. It helps you track their standards knowledge, and it will allow you to do a lot in your classroom while looking at the data side. There's a great grouping feature in the analytics that once you have data from your students, you can put them in homogeneous groups, heterogeneous groups, depending on what you're looking for that day. There's also a bunch of methods of intervention. The three things that I've discussed, you hopefully have seen in the other workshop held that gives you more of a background of the data and the dashboard side. Since you have that background, we're going to be now using that moving forward. So the first thing I want you guys to do is I want you to know how to navigate the interface, some things that tips and tricks that help you out. So you are going to act as a student right now and take one of just a simple test. At this time, workshop members would be given the test taker code, and this is what it looks like. It's just giving that message since I was in preview mode. So looking at this, what is one thing that you really liked about the interface? What is one thing that you did not care for? Is there some way that we can change this to make it work for you? Was there anything that surprised you? I know the first time I used it, it was surprising that it was so easy to use. A lot of new programs, thinking about all of our students testing, they get really clunky, but teaching math in my background, it really was nice to use for my students. So the teacher platform, now that you've taken one, we all have that data and we can look at it. It breaks up my dashboard, my intervention, my test banks, passages, and utilities. So we are going to get an overview of the features while we are building our traditional assessment. We have multiple choice, fill in the blank, constructive responses, drawing responses, a multi-part, and drag and drop. There is a lot more, but those top 6 ones are ones that I want to show you to start off with today. So when you're in your home screen, you're going to be going into test design and then clicking tests. If you are a new user, these will all be blank. If you are, a seasoned user, you probably have some things in there. but we are going to just add a new test here. And we're going to call this workshop number 1. Now it opens up your test instructions. This is the first screen that when you are a student, you would see. So any important information that you want your students to see before they start, I would enter that here. A good tip and trick is throughout is I always save anytime I change anything. LinkIT does prompt you many times, but it is always just good just in case you accidentally X out, your computer crashes, it has everything that you've done. So we're going to create our first item. So on the top left here, we're going to create this item. It defaults to a multiple choice, so we'll do that one first. Again, any question that you have. So, and then as you're entering your answers, you're just going to double click here. And we could see that in here, this gives us a lot of different options. So since my original question was the temperature today, I'll say 70 degrees, which that makes that correct answer. And let's throw some other answers in there. Okay. If I wanted to make this a multi-select problem, I would just hit this. And you can see then it lets you, pick your maximal number of choices, goes into partial grading. Again, this is going to be a quick overview. There's a lot more in-depth features that when you're building your own assessment, we could spend more time going into, but that would be a different workshop. This is just to get you started on your own the first time around. So now that we have our question, our answer, our point value, the way we want it to show, I'm going to click OK. Just like to give me a space in between there. And now we have our first question. That's it. And this is going to be automatically graded for you. So as your students go in and answer this question, as long as they answer a 70 degrees, they will be getting that point, and you see that in the dashboard. So I'm going to save this and create my next one. The next one that we're going to talk about is a fill in the blank. So gives us, again, defaults to a multiple choice. So I'm just going to click my fill in the blank here. And any question you can ask, it is not to be very long. I would say think about, like numerical answers, short phrases, vocab. Since I have a math background, I'm going to enter this equation here. So let's make it that. So if that was my question to solve there, students thinking about how to answer this question, you do have to think about your different ways that they may enter it. A lot of the times in the beginning, I start conditioning my students of how to enter things on LinkIT. So your answer is X is equal to 2. A lot of the times I would just enter 2 as well. A lot of people just don't write the X. So that's going to save you a lot of time for automatic grading. If there is one of those problems that have a lot of different answers and you don't want to sit here and try to think of every possible scenario, then I would hit grade manually. So I'm going to just select that one now. Again, point value, your expected length. If it defaults to 8, you can always make it a little bit bigger just in case, depending on how people type. And that's my fill in the blank. So let's create our next one. Our next one's going to be a constructed response. So we can see that this box of their answer is a lot bigger. So this is where I would be having an explanation. So I had to solve to obtain our answer. So here's where this is what it's going to look like. It is automatically set to a grade manually since answers will vary, but you can pick how long this box and big is going to be, and then different grading styles if you want it to be 2 points, anything like that. So that is one that you will go through yourself during the grading module. The next one is a drawing response. So my question is going to be draw the line y is equal to x plus 1. Double click here, whatever image you want them to draw on. So freeform, really open, math teachers, science teachers, graphing and labeling tools are really nice. I'm going to enter a coordinate plane here. And I'm going to make this 2 points. Okay. So a great tool as you are creating your assessments is you can always preview this item to see what it looks like on your screen. So it's just generating a preview of what it will look like in the student test taker. So now I can see that on my screen, it would look like this for my students. So given the way that this is loading, I personally would make this like a 70% so they don't have to scroll to draw, just to kind of work that out. And then to do that, you just click your image again. And then in this percent here, I'm going to drop it to 70. Makes it a little bit tinier, but I still want to make sure that it's nicely seen. So I'm going to preview it again. And we can see much better the question and the drawing is all on there. And it has my graphing tools right here. So it's going to make a nice line for me. Next one is a multi-part question. So given that it's a multi-part question, you are going to have to set this up part by part. So I'll say here are my directions. My part 1, maybe I want that to be multiple choice. And then part B, I want them to explain their answer above. So I'm going to enter a constructed response here. So it will automatically grade the multiple choice for you, but the constructed response, when you go into grading, it will prompt you to look at everyone's answers separately, since that is something that you can't just enter one answer and have it auto grade. And then last but not least, we'll talk about the drag and drop feature. So the drag and drop feature, you can use images, you can use text, whatever you're using. I would have the idea in place beforehand, because the first thing that we need to do is we need to give our draggable objects first. So I am just going to make some labels. This is where you can limit how many times it's used, if you want to use it more than once. I am just typing random words for now. And I'll show you what an image looks like. I'm 90% sure I have some kind of math image available. Perfect. That's too big. So again, making that percentage a little bit there. So now I have my items that I'd be dragging in. And now I need to create my dropping spots. So I'm going to make it a text field. And my first one is going to be words that start with A. To make the actual field where they're dropping these images better, we're playing around with the height and the width. And this is where we need to select our answers that are allowed to drop in for points. So this is why we had to create those dragging objects first. So we can see in my preview item, that on the screen, I have my fields here and say, okay, words that start with A, animal, there we go. There's no save button. As long as they drag them in and it snaps in there, we know that that's the answer for it. So those are the main item types used for LinkIT. There is a good amount of other ones, as you can see. If you go into this item type, my passages are thinking about, any standardized tests, SATs, when there's an image that comes up along with a problem. So I'm going to just take a question that we had here, and I'm going to insert a passage just so we can see what it looks like. So if you wanted to enter a picture in, that would enter the picture into the actual screen of where the question is. A lot of the times, I personally think it's nice to enter it as a passage or a reference. So to do that, you do have to name it. I'm going to add a new one. I'm going to name it test item number 1. Select grade, subject, and then if you would like to fill in, all of these are optional, but if you feel like you'll be using the GIM, it helps with the filters. So now you can say, okay, I want to enter this image for them to look at. I'm just going to pick random math image here. You can make it drawable as well. So if you want these students being able to draw on it to help them for any reason, you can do that. You can see that's very large. So I just know that 70% is going to be good for my passage, most likely. Save and attach. So it automatically saves and attaches it. And now we can see if I preview this item, my question, the way my settings are set up is my question will appear on my right side. My passage will appear on the left so they can see that and then continue typing about it. Depending on your features, you can put it on the right side, the left side. Like I said before, you can have that image in there and go from there. You can insert videos, audio, tables, really kind of everything that you would ever need for an assessment. So now that you guys have been a student, seen how to create it, I'm going to show you the grading features. So since you had one of the mock LinkIT ones, I will have an example of grading on here. So in order to grade, you're going to go to this online testing, review, and grade. So we can see the testing 1, review. And right now I'm only seeing one that I have to manually grade, only ones that need my approval. If I want to see all of them, I can uncheck this and we can see, okay, the multiple choice question got right. Number 3 was the drag and drop, got that right. And 5 was the hotspot one, which was also correct. So now looking at this, I'm going to say, okay, number 2. They have to graph a line. Looking at that, it's 1 out of 1 points. Say they got it right, enter 1 point, apply that grade. It automatically would jump you to the next non-graded item. But if I wanted to go back to question 2 here, I can enter feedback. I can write my feedback. This microphone down here lets me record audio feedback. On the bottom, it has your overall test score as of right now. So I'm going to say that this one got wrong. It's telling me that everything for this is grading. Do I want to send it to reporting? I don't right now because I want to show you guys some things. So if I wanted to record feedback on here, it's probably not going to let me given that I'm using my recording for this workshop, but that is a great feature instead of typing so students can hear your tone of voice, inflection, and everything like that. Your overall test feedback, that's not going to be linked to a particular question. That will be for everything. So now I'm done grading the students. I'm going to submit the test. And now we're going to actually go see the reporting of everything. So to go back to my reporting, I'm going to go to my reporting tab and my dashboard. Again, if you don't have any assessments in there, you will only see this one. I have used LinkIT a good amount. So looking at this testing, I'm going to drag in here for more details. If there was more than one student, obviously in a class, you would get an overview of what that looks like. So just so you guys can see this, I'm going to drag in my benchmark So we can see not meeting, partially approaching, which for that's great for a benchmark in the beginning of the year. You want to go into more detail, you can look at your grouping here, you can look at your custom reports, your diagnostics, your item analysis, and your student results. And this is where the first workshop went into detail. So, given that we went over the major items, we went over how to grade, there's features, any suggestions that you have as you're grading, send to LinkIT. They're really good about listening to what our teachers need. But what your goal is now is to start creating your own assessment. The best way to get comfortable with a new platform is to try it yourself. I'll be here to answer questions, help anything, go back and forth with ideas. So you have something that you can use in the next week or two in your classroom. Eventually, you'll be taking your knowledge of traditional assessments, and your district's goal is to incorporate more authentic ones. So you're going to build in that knowledge where these assessments, you're going to have those authentic ones on LinkIT where it can auto grade for you and it can track the standards.